2 months ago, when we got the better than expected jobs report, gold dropped, I think, $40 that day. The dollar was stronger too, but we had a $40 drop in the price of gold. And the whole decline was due to the beat, right? The stronger than expected jobs report. Last month, when we got another beat, gold was down about $20. So $60 off on the price of gold because of two jobs numbers. Now, if you remember, what did I say? And you can just roll the tape and go back and look at my last two podcasts that I did following the jobs report. You can also go look at my X feed and see what I had to post about the numbers. But I said it is ridiculous that anybody is celebrating these numbers, that Trump is bragging about them, that markets are moving on them, because I said they're not real. They are going to be revised down. Now, how did I know they were going to be revised down? Which, of course, they were, and I'm going to get to that. But I knew that are pretty much revised down. In fact, prior to the revisions that we just got, the prior 4 months had all been downward revisions. And they announced on Friday downward revisions to May and June. So we've now had 6 consecutive downward revisions. And that means every single jobs report that we've had since Trump's been president was revised down. And it means all the reports that the markets reacted to as being beats were actually misses, meaning that had they reported the correct number initially, the markets would have done the opposite of what they actually did based on this bad data, that half the revisions would be up and half would be down. It's like tossing a coin, right? It's either up or down if it's random. The fact that we've revised down 6 consecutive numbers means it's not random. There is a flaw in the methodology for reporting the jobs, at least at the initial stage, right? And the skeptic in me would say it's by design, right? Maybe there's no coincidences when it comes to government. But even if it's just accidental, you have to accept the fact that whatever is reported initially means nothing, that the real number is much lower and it's going to be revised later. Now, normally, nobody pays attention to the revisions. That's part of the game. Every month, they revise down the previous month, but then they come up with another number that beats, and they miss the revisions, and the game is played over and over again. And so I call this out, and I've been saying that the jobs market is weak, that the labor market is weak. I mean, we keep beating these low numbers, but the reality is we missed the numbers. And now, when we got the jobs number on Friday, this time the revisions were so big. In fact, they're unprecedented in size for 2 back-to-back months. We haven't seen this before. The markets actually paid attention to the fact that there were downward revisions. But also, the number that they reported for July was also a miss. So it was a trifecta. We missed on the expectations for July, and we revised down the prior 2 months. So before I even get to the revisions, let me talk about the current report, which was very weak. So the estimate was for 110,000 jobs created for July. Again, a low bar. People probably thought we would beat it. Instead, we missed it. 73,000 jobs created. What are the odds that we actually created 73,000 jobs? I'd say close to zero. If we revise down the last 6 reports, what's the odds that this report is not going to get revised down? Pretty slim. I think we probably lost jobs in July. By the time they revise this number, we'll probably find out that it was a minus. I mean, nobody even talked about that. They talked about the prior revisions. Why wasn't anybody talking about the fact that we can't trust this number either? Beneath the surface, at the birth-death model, which, I point this out a lot because it's so subjective. I mean, how do you know how many businesses were created or shut down? I think they always overestimate. But the birth-death model all by itself added 97,000 jobs. Well, that's more than the total number of jobs we created. So the whole thing is a guess. They will get more data over the next couple of months, and then we'll get a more reliable number. And it'll probably be a negative number. So this number is weak, and it's probably going to get revised even weaker. Now, the headline number, which is a number that the Fed, and I'm going to talk about Powell later in the press conference from earlier in the week, didn't go up. It held steady at 4.2%. But the reason that it didn't go up was not because a lot of people didn't lose their jobs or people got jobs. It's because a lot of people left the labor market. The labor force participation rate shrank to 62.2 from 62.3 the prior month. The expectation was 62.4. But what does it mean when people leave the labor market? It means that some people that lost their jobs just decided they didn't want to look for another one. One unemployment measure that's more accurate and that's more realistic than that one is the U6 number, which includes people who are discouraged for under a year, and it includes people who are working part-time but want a full-time job. So they're still looking for a full-time job, but they settled for a part-time job while they're looking, right? Those people are in there. They used to be in the main number. They took them out in the 90s to make the number lower because nobody pays attention to the U6 number, which is the actual number. But even that number isn't what it used to be because they used to count, and because you were so discouraged, you haven't looked for a job in 4 years, you were still counted as unemployed. But now they cut off the discouraged workers at a year. So after a year has gone by, if you're still unemployed and you're still discouraged, you don't even count in the U6 number, right? All those people used to count in the main number, right? So the main number is all BS now. But the U6 number, that's a pretty big jump. And we're almost at 8%. That's a lot of unemployment, right? The Fed wants to pretend that the unemployment rate is close to 4%. It's almost 8%, right? That's why it's all BS. Powell says we're near full employment. We're nowhere near full employment. And I've been talking about how weak this labor market is, since before Trump was president, when Biden was president. And it's weaker now. Now, look at manufacturing. Manufacturing, the initial report last month was that manufacturing lost 7,000 jobs, right? Nobody seemed to care about that. Well, they revised that to a bigger loss. 15,000 manufacturing jobs were lost last month. We lost another 11,000. They were expecting a gain. We got a loss. So, Trump is out there trumpeting this reindustrialization of America thanks to his tariffs, right? The tariffs are supposed to revitalize manufacturing, right? Well, why are we seeing all these job losses in manufacturing? Wait, where are we seeing the job gains? In local governments, state and local governments, in social services, in healthcare. Right? So he's not creating jobs where he's promising to create them. We are still hemorrhaging those jobs. Now, average hourly earnings, that met estimates up 0.3, but year over year, up 3.9. Why are earnings going up? Because inflation is driving up wages, it's driving up prices. So this report, I think, is more evidence of stagflation, which, and we got a lot more weak economic data that came out even yesterday. The same day we got the jobs numbers, or Friday rather, the same day we got the jobs numbers, we got weak economic data on manufacturing. In fact, the manufacturing ISM, which anything below 50 is recession. And it was 49 last month. It was supposed to improve to 49.5. And instead, it went in the other direction and went down to 48. So this is a stagflation economy. But let me get to the revisions, because that is, where the real shocks were in the magnitude of these revisions. So remember, the markets and the Trump administration celebrated because as originally released, they were beats. And so everybody was able to talk about how we're creating more jobs than people thought, right? And therefore, the tariffs aren't hurting because the economy is booming and, it's all Trump's fault, right? Well, anyway, they revised the May jobs number down, right, from what was originally reported, or I think it was even revised a little higher last month. So even the revision was wrong initially. But the May number, which we thought was 144,000, that was revised to just 19,000 jobs. 19,000. That is a huge miss. That is a horrible number. Had the $19,000 or 19,000 number been released initially, gold probably would have gone up $40 instead of down $40. Now, the June number was revised by a similar amount. It was reported last month at 147,000. That was a beat. It was a small beat, but it was a beat. Down $20 on that beat. If they would have reported 14,000, gold probably would have shot up by a lot more than $20. It might have been up $50. In fact, gold was up yesterday. It closed up $73 on the bad news, back above 33.60. But I think gold would probably already be above 3,500 had we got the correct jobs numbers right off the bat. Because all gold really did was recover ground it never should have lost, but it should have gained a lot of ground. Now, I think it's going to recover that ground pretty quickly. I think now that people are going to realize what they should have realized a long time ago, to cut rates in September. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. I just want to talk a little bit more about these jobs numbers, because after the jobs numbers came out, of course, Donald Trump was very unhappy with these numbers. And about a few hours later, I read on the tape that Trump fired the woman who is in charge of the Labor Department, where they come up with these statistics. He fired her for being incompetent, right? For doing a lousy job. Now, initially, I was wondering, well, okay, well, what exactly is he firing her for? Is he firing her because the last 6 jobs numbers were all off and they all had to be revised down? So is that why he's firing her? Because, she's doing such a bad job? No, that's not why he's firing her. He made it clear. He came out and said later in the day, I'm firing her because today's jobs numbers were rigged. I don't believe these numbers. I don't believe these revisions. He's saying that he believes that the reason the jobs number missed and the reason that the last 2 jobs reports were revised down by a record number of jobs was just to make him look bad, right? So the Labor Department, right, and of course the person in charge doesn't compute these numbers. I mean, maybe she gets them. There's all number of people. There's lots of people. I forget how many, 40 people maybe I read, that work on these numbers. Now, look, I think it's a waste of time. Just fire them, right? I think the numbers are so inaccurate that what's the point of wasting all this money? That's good enough. I mean, if the markets want job statistics, let private companies supply them. I mean, I don't like the government anyway supplying economic data because I don't trust the government, because the government is biased. Again, it's like asking the mafia to compute crime statistics. Obviously, the mafia is going to say, hey, there's no crime. We don't need any cops. See, look, nobody's getting robbed. There's no extortion. There's no racketeering. There's no need for any police. Of course, right? The mafia, is not going to be, unbiased, right? Or it's like, letting kids grade their own report cards. Oh, my kid got straight A's. What do you know? Of course, right? If the kids grade their own report cards, what do you think? They're going to fail themselves? So you need an objective person. So I think we should fire everybody. He shouldn't just fire the head. Fire the entire department. Shut it down. We don't even need it. It would have to be a conspiracy among everybody. And again, when I have been saying the numbers were bad, I didn't say it was, a conspiracy to fudge the numbers. My critique has always been that the methodology is wrong. The way they calculate these numbers, that's the problem. And maybe they've been designed to be wrong. It's not a conspiracy to fake them. Nobody is, getting the numbers and they're low and they're saying, oh, let's just, lie and make them good because we want to make Obama or Biden look good. Oh, we want to make Trump look bad. So let's, let's erase this good number we got and substitute it. They couldn't get away with that. But if the methodology is wrong, then it's garbage in, garbage out. It's the same thing with GDP. It's the same thing with inflation, except in the other direction. But the number of jobs created is higher. GDP is always higher. In fact, we got 3% GDP that came out on Wednesday, stronger than expected. Trump was talking about how great that was. Oh, look, 3% growth. Well, why is that number real? Right? And in fact, all the jobs reports that came out in the past that were wrong, but initially beat the estimates, Trump believed that. Oh, yeah, those statistics are accurate. But when it's a bad number, oh, it's been rigged. And of course, if the head of the Labor Department was really trying to make Trump look bad, why did she wait until August 1st to do it? Why did all these other reports, in fact, every single jobs report that has been released, I think, since Trump was president, was a beat?